Hello, today we are going to use two different operating systems. One is Linux Ubuntu 24.04 and the other is Windows 11 Pro. And in each we are going to use the best possible twin pane file manager, also known as orthodox file manager. For Linux there's KDE Krusader. For Windows there's the Total Commander application from Gisler. On Google, I searched for Wiki Orthodox File Manager. It takes me to two places, a list of Orthodox file managers, and then the wiki page for Orthodox file managers, which is actually under File Manager. So these are applications similar to Norton Commander for DOS. Have two panes. The half left of the screen is one directory. The right half of the screen represents another directory. And this makes it easy, for instance, to do a copy. So if you want to copy from directory A to directory B, you just put the left pane directory A, right pane directory B, and then you select the files that you want to copy. This is usually done using the keyboard key insert, and then you copy to the other pane using the keyboard key F5 for copy. At the bottom you might have a list of F keys, so a bit of a help. If you press the Control key, this list of commands will change. If you press the Shift key, this list of commands will change. So if you did not press Control, Shift or Alt, there's 0 keyboard keys pressed. It will say that F4 is edit the current file, F5 is copy, F6 is move the current file or directory, F7 is create directory, and F8 is delete the current file or directory. F10 is quit. F3 is read-only view, whereas F4 is read-write edit of a single file. And there exist other Orthodox file managers which have graphical user interface. For instance, there's Double Commander, which works both on Linux and Windows. For Windows, there's Total Commander. For Linux, there's Krusader. There are other text user interface Orthodox file managers. The most well-known is the GNU Midnight Commander. A text user interface Orthodox file manager comes very handy when you're connected remotely to a server that doesn't have graphical user interface. It's probably running Linux. If you're connected to a Linux Docker container, the command is mc, and it just allows you to easier see the files that you have available in the directories and to easier do bulk operations such as move just the first and the fifth file to another directory. Okay, and then from the category Orthodox file managers on Wikipedia, we have talked about Midnight Commander, which is a text user interface Orthodox file manager, and we're going to compare these two, Total Commander and KDE's Krusader. I have two operating systems. On the right there's Windows, on the left there's Linux, and the two applications are already started, KDE Krusader and Gisler Total Commander. Out of the box, Total Commander looks better because the fonts are maybe easier to read and certainly smaller. So there's the possibility of having more directories and files visible by default. Okay, Both have a very important addition over the text user interface orthodox file managers, which is the tabs. Tabs are very important. I usually run just one instance of Total Commander and just one instance of Krusader. But then I know in which pane and in which tab I have what. So for instance, I know that in the right pane in Total Commander, I have the source code that I'm working on, the Git repository. And this makes it easy for me to not need to navigate. If I have important directories that I always go to, I don't bookmark them like this, but instead, or like this, instead I keep tabs open on the directories that I very frequently use. No more than 4 tabs per pane. So each pane has its own tabs. You open them similar to a web browser with Ctrl-T, close them with Ctrl-W, Ctrl-T, Ctrl-W. Okay, let's see the file management actions that we usually do. Let's, I don't know, create a directory under res. Let's do the same with in here. Some editors allow you to, some file managers allow you to move tabs from the left pane to the right pane. Let's see if Total Commander knows this thing. So Ctrl-T, open a new tab, and then move the tab to the left pane. And it allows you to do such a thing. So we can, for instance, have in the right pane on the first tab the same directory res. Like this. Okay. How do we make a directory? By default, the F commands are shown at the bottom, but I disable them. I do not need them. I know them by heart, which is done like this. Options, and then function keys. So Alt F4 is exit on Total Commander. F10 continues to be quit, similar to Midnight Commander in Krusader. But you still can press Alt F4 to close the application, because it's a graphical user interface application. I usually don't search in the start menu for the application. It's so important. I use these orthodox file managers instead of the native file managers. So in the case of Kubuntu 2404, this is KDE Plasma 5. So the native file manager is Dolphin. I do not use that. I use Krusader instead. And in Windows, I never use the Windows file manager. Instead, I use Total Commander. These two orthodox file managers are so important that I have them pinned in the taskbar in Windows and pinned in the icons only task manager in KDE Plasma. Okay, so let's see how we create a directory. Make directory, you can click on the button, or you can look at the shortcut F7. Let's press F7, the directory, which is today. Okay, the same thing with Total Commander, F7 new folder. Or we can press the F7 key. Okay, you can enter inside directories by pressing enter. This directory has the name ... which means go to the parent directory. So pressing enter a number of times goes inside of the child directory and then back to the parent directory. Let's see if the same thing works in Krusader. So the currently selected directory is ... We're in the child directory today. And by pressing enter, we will go to the directory ... which means go to the parent directory. Okay, what else can we do? We can create a file. The shortcut is not presented here. Even if I press the Shift key, the command buttons do not change. From what I remember, the original Orthodox File Manager Norton Commander, when you kept the Control key pressed, the function keys would change. For instance, there's no possibility of doing Control F8, so this button would become blank. Control F3 would do, I don't know, show tree view, and it was saying here F3 3, you know. If you pressed Alt and then on F4 would say new file. Whereas in Total Commander and Krusader, the toolbar which contains the function keys is fixed. Does not care if you press the Shift, Control or Alt keys on your keyboard. Which would have come in handy because right now we want to create a file and we have no clue how to create one with the keyboard. So yeah, you can go right click and create a file, new, and then something from here. But we want to do something very similar to opening a text editor from the terminal, like I know Emacs or VS Code, where you can specify the name of the file as the only parameter of the command line. It will open the file if it exists, if it will create the file and edit it if it does not exist. So the shortcut is Shift F4. Let's see if Shift F4 works here also. Yeah, so Krusader says enter the file name to edit, enter the file name to edit. Okay, one has a space between file and name and the other one does not have. Okay. File.md. File.md. And now it's going to open the text editor. So this is for editing files in read-write mode, not just listing the contents of files in read-only mode. You can configure the application that's the text editor that's used by the Orthodox File Manager in Total Commander, in the main menu configuration, options, and then operation view. So in here I have selected the text editor from the KDE community, Kate. There exists a Kate binary for Windows. The F3 viewer is the one built into Total Commander. The same setting for Krusader settings, configure Krusader, general, and the viewer editor, and this is the group box for the editor. I have selected Kate, installed from the Ubuntu binary deb packages /usr/bin/kate. Let's put some content into this file. This is a markdown file, a plain text file, which allows you to, for instance, have heading 1. Okay, the text editor is the same, Kate, both Windows and Linux, so we can do the exact same thing. I like to have a trailing new line, so I'm going to have the line 4 empty. Ctrl S to save. And now I should have similar files, 28 bytes. So the text encoding should be 7-bit ASCII or UTF-8 without byte order mark. Let's prove that that's the case. F3 to view. And then we're going to change the way we view the file by going to hex. Let's do the same thing with file.md on Linux. And in here, it opens with the KR viewer, which is the built-in read-only viewer from Krusader. And in here, we're going to select the KR viewer from the KR viewer main menu and hex viewer. Okay, so we should only have ASCII 7-bit characters, so 2320, correct. Title is 54. You can see them in the ASCII table. In here. So 20 is this one space in hexadecimal, so on base 16. In base 10 decimal, that's 32. After title, we have these two characters, 0A, 0A. And in Windows, we should have 0D, 0A, 0D, 0A. But Kate has used Unix line terminator characters, which is 0A, which is this one, line feed LF. In Windows, usually the line terminator character is the combination \r\n, which means CR, this hexadecimal D or base 10, 13. And then hexadecimal A decimal 10 line feed, which is \n. And if you want to quickly go to the hex view, select the file F3 and then the keyboard key 3. This thing, these three. For Krusader F3, and then you need to manually go here and hex viewer because I cannot remember this shortcut Ctrl-Shift-H. Okay, let's see how we rename the file. So Shift F4 was for creating a file. I'm not sure where you can find that shortcut. Let's see. Find action, file. This thing. New text file, Shift F4. So in Krusader, main menu, help, and then find action. And in here you have all of the possible shortcuts. You can filter, as I did, by file, and you can scroll. For Total Commander, there used to be a page with a keyboard. So in the Total Commander main menu, help, and then keyboard. And here are the shortcuts. And we went what? To create a file. Shift F4, create new text file and load into editor. Okay, let's hide these commands toolbar, configuration, options, function key buttons. Okay. Settings, show FN keybar. Okay, what can we do? So we can navigate using the mouse, similar to the default file managers in Windows and in Linux. There's a right-click context menu. For this, in Total Commander, you need to make this setting, configuration, operation, left mouse button, Windows Standard, this one. Otherwise, the default for right-click menu is that if you right-click, the context menu will appear only after 1 second. Okay, let's see how we copy files from one pane to the other. In the second pane, we'll create another directory named 1, F7.1, enter. F7.1, enter. On the other tab, we navigate between tabs using the tab key between the two panes, using the tab key. Okay, and in here we go tab, enter, tab, F5, enter. Let's see in here, tab, where are you? The current tab can be seen by the fact that this part becomes blue. And this part becomes blue, the breadcrumb for the path. Okay. Unfortunately, Krusader has this concept of one thing has the caret, one file has the caret, and another file is blue, so selected. This dichotomy is not okay. In Total Commander, there is no such thing. You cannot move the caret and keep the selection. Okay, so be very careful when the file is not selected, it just only has the caret. You don't know exactly what's going to do. If you're trying to delete a file, maybe it will delete a wrong directory instead of a file, so be very careful. Enter, tab, F5, enter. So that's why you have two panes, in order to easily be able to do the two operations, file move, directory move, file copy, file move. In order to rename the file, in Total Commander, that's Shift F6, and in Krusader, there's the same shortcut as in Dolphin, which is F2 to rename. So Shift F6, I'm not sure exactly what it does. Will move the file. Similar to F6, probably the same dialog as F6. Yes. Instead of renaming the file. So F2 for Krusader. If you press F2 again, it will select only the file, not the extension. If you press F2 again, it will select only the extension. So F2 edits the entire file, including extension, like this. If you press any key, the whole file name will be replaced with what you pressed on the keyboard, so A in this case. Escape, F2, F2, let's change just the name of the file, not the extension. Test file, press enter. In Total Commander, Shift F6, Shift F6. So there's a selection for the entire file name and selection just for the file name without extension. There's no selection just by extension, which is okay. Okay. Test file. Whatever you have selected, if you type from the keyboard, the selection will be replaced. Press enter to acknowledge that the name of the file should be changed. Escape to exit before actually renaming the file. Okay. Let's move this file, F6. F6. Now we're in this situation where we have the caret around the file, but we don't have the blue selection. Now the blue selection is on directory 1 and the caret is on the test file.md. If I want to delete the what will it do? Fortunately, it says what it does, so I would expect that it deletes test file.md, which is where I went last time, but no, it deletes the thing that's marked with blue. Hopefully it offers a bit of confirmation, otherwise we would easily delete wrong files and directories. Okay, if you click, it's always going to both move the caret and the blue selection. F6 to move. While moving, you can actually rename the file. Let's do that. F6 to move once, tab, down, F6, and rename the file. Okay, so we know how to create files, Shift F4. We know how to rename files and directories, Shift F6. How to create directories, that's F7. Make directory. F7, make directory. We know how to move and copy files or directories, F5 and for copy, F6 for move. To delete files or directories, F8. Okay. A very important feature is to copy the full path of the file. Let's open a text editor. New tab. So F4. And then we open a new tab in the text editor and I close the existing one, the first tab with middle mouse middle click, which is clicking on the scroll wheel of the mouse. Let's copy the full path of this directory, of this file, test file 2. So that's Control Alt C and Control V. There's no shortcut in Total Commander, but the position in the Total Commander main menu is mark and then copy names with path to clipboard. There's other interesting selections for the current file, so test file underscore 2.md. We can copy just the file name, so test file underscore 2.md. The names with path, so that's the full path of the file, the way we see it in here. And we can copy just the file name plus details and the full path with details. Details being file size and what you see on the screen and the DOS attributes. So DOS attributes, archive. This is probably the M time, modification time, and this is file size in bytes. Full path of the file and separated by the tab characters. We can see in here that this is a tab character. And this and this. Very convenient in Krusader. You often copy the full path of a file, Ctrl+C, and then you paste it on any terminal, such as console or the built-in terminal that's available in Krusader, Ctrl+Shift+V. So copy Ctrl+Alt+C and copy Ctrl+Shift+V, Ctrl+C versus Ctrl+Shift+V. Ctrl+Shift is for the terminals. Ctrl+Shift+C copies the selection, Ctrl+Shift+V pastes from the clipboard. because Control C will actually close the current task in the terminal. Okay, let's see how we make the terminal visible. That's settings embedded terminal. This is not shown by default, but I like it. So the way I configure Krusader is to hide all of the toolbars. These toolbars for me just provide clutter, and I have never had any need for these buttons. If I actually need a very complex thing, I'm going to grab it from the Krusader main menu. The simple things, I already know how to do them just using my keyboard. So no need for any toolbars. And I don't need the function keys because, again, they don't change and they're always the same. F10 quit, F3 view read only, F4 edit read write in a text editor, F5 F6 copy and move, F8 delete, F6 make directory. So I'm not going to have useless pixels on my screen occupied with useless things, which I already know by heart. So I'm going to hide the function keys bar. And then I need to select between command line, which is what we have in Total Commander, this thing where it says the PWD, the full path of the current directory. And then you can enter commands. What would be a command? This one, to start kcalc. So calc.exe is the Windows calculator. So I wrote CALC, or I could put the extension. The extensions are not mandatory when you want to start a process in Windows. Okay. Whereas in here, I can probably issue commands that can be interpreted by the shell, which is bash in my case. I know what. Bash, probably. Okay, so I can start Kate. I can use full paths. USR bin Kate. I don't know the full path for anything in Windows. And then I have this handy history. I usually don't pollute the command line because then I'm not going to find the correct things in the Total Commander command line history. I only have, I know, 5 things in here. If I actually want to start calc or calc.exe, I would first start a CMD and from here start calc. This way, the history of the command line doesn't get polluted with the line calc or calc.exe. So the things that I want to remain in the history, I actually write them completely in the Total Commander command line. The things that I do not want to remain in the history, I'm going to first start a CMD, which is cmd.exe, the Windows default command line text user interface shell and command line terminal application. And then I'm going to run the command from here. A thing that I always need in Windows is Git, because I install portable Git. I never install Git to c:\program files. And I cannot really remember the full path of the git-cmd.exe executable. So that's why I have it saved in here in the history of the Total Commander command line bar. Okay, so copying full paths, Control Alt C, and mark copy names with path to clipboard. If you want multi-selection with the insert key, you can select all files with numpad multiplication sign. I do not have a numerical pad on my keyboard. My keyboard is 10 key less, DKL. But I can use insert. And then if you want to select all of the files inside of a directory except one, you select the file that you do not want, and then you revert the selection, which is mark revert selection. This guy, invert selection. Both orthodox file managers are very keyboard heavy. You can do almost anything with just a keyboard. You can almost 90% of time ignore the mouse. But there's absolutely nobody punishing you for actually using the mouse. I would use the mouse to go to the main menu and to go right click on the file. From here we can have additional functionalities such as comparing files. If on Windows I install WinMerge, I select two files, and then from the context menu I go WinMerge. So this is a WinMerge feature, not a Total Commander feature, but it's great that it works. The same thing I have working in Krusader. I have multi-selection, and then right click, open with, other, meld, enter. So the dance is a bit longer. In here it's 1, 2. In here it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 is not that long, so I always do it like this. We can compare directories in the exact same way. Multiple selection, right click, WinMerge, right click, open with other and meld, like this. Which allows me, for instance, to move a file from the wrong directory to the correct directory. So maybe test file 2 needs to be in the directory 2, not in the directory 1. So for that I use the copy to write button. Or right click, so the context menu, and then copy to write. Same thing here. Right click on the test file 2, and then what did I do? Copy. Okay, let's do copy, left to right. I actually intended to do move, but this is okay. And now I can compare the file test file underscore 2.md for the from the two directories, 1 and 2. The files are identical. I can actually edit the files. Ctrl S to save. In the directory 1, the same thing. Ctrl S, like this. I can close the tab in WinMerge. I can close everything in WinMerge. The same in Meld. So because there's no built-in terminal in Total Commander, I do use the command line bar, but because there's a full featured terminal in Krusader, this guy, I have zero need for the command line. I have a full featured terminal in here, it's actually 90% of console. And I can do all of the things that my fingers know how to do, like Control R and up and down and starting Visual Studio Code. So I actually prefer a real terminal, and Total Commander doesn't yet have it. I guess it will have it at some point, since Windows Terminal is already part of the Windows operating system. Even if Total Commander does not ship something very similar to Windows Terminal, it should have a way of embedding the real Windows Terminal. This is the way I configure Krusader and Total Commander by default, which is just show the names of files and directories, don't show thumbnails, and use the smallest size possible for the height of the text and for the icon. And in case I need to see image previews, there's a button for that. That's show and thumbnail view, Control Shift F1. So this shortcut I actually know, Control Shift F1. The equivalent in Krusader, that's view, show previews, and then I'm going to zoom by hand with Control Scroll. I can make the right pane occupy most of the screen. Right click on the separator between panes and 2080. There's no context menu in here in Krusader, so I can move it a bit to the left. Let's increase the size. Let's do something similar to what Total Commander does. So don't show a detailed view, but show something else. Similar to a list view with icons only, which I don't know how to trigger. Okay, so this mode is useful when you're archiving your the photographs that you took. So you're probably going to get the photographs from your mobile phone or from an SD card, import them to your operating system, and then you're going to group them by date, put them in different directories, maybe do batch renaming. Both Total Commander and Krusader know how to do batch renaming, if that's something you're into. I usually leave the names of the photographs not changed, because there's just they contain just the timestamp, so the date and time when they were taken. Let's look a bit at the path bar. So this is a breadcrumb in Krusader, which means that you can click on a directory. It will take you there. The same thing for Total Commander. In Total Commander, you can actually right-click on a part of the path. In here, it shows the context menu for the current directory. By default, I configure both to show the hidden files, because I'm a developer, I'm an advanced user. I will not mess up my system, and I want to see all of the files that exist in here. So the hidden directories such as .git will be shown by default. The configurations that I do in Total Commander. So I hide the parts that I do not need, such as the two button bars, the function keys, and then I show the hidden files, shows hidden files in the file display group box. Operation left mouse button Windows standard. Edit view in the editor, I put the text editor that I want. I usually have used over the years in here Schite and couple of times Notepad++, and now I'm using KDE Kate. The last setting that I do is this one with quick search letters only. So that means that if I write .tr, it will go to the file .travis.yml. Let's see if the same works in Krusader. So .tr also does a search, goes to the correct file, but it also opens a search bar. This option is also available in Total Commander. That's configuration, quick search, letters with search dialog. .tr. This is the way it looks. And you can also filter such that it only shows the files which contain .tr in name. I have never used the filter functionality, but I might start to use it at some point. I don't use 90% of the features of an orthodox file manager. I have never used the batch rename feature, and I don't mount remote FTP, Samba, SSH, etc. shares. I don't actually navigate inside zip files and other compressed files. I usually extract it first using 7-zip in Windows, or this right-click menu with compress and extract. Let's create a compressed file and see how we can extract it. Let's take signing keys directory, right-click, compress it, zip extension, right-click, and in Windows I have two ways of creating a zip file, either using 7-zip. I have the application 7-zip installed on all of my Windows computers, or using send to compressed zip folder. The created files are this one, signing -keys.zip. I can extract it using 7-zip, but first I should rename the file Shift F6, Shift F6, right arrow key, _2, F2, F2, right arrow key, _2, extract, here auto detect. I'm not sure what it's going to do. It detected that inside of the file, the archive is named signing key, so bad decision to, because I do not want to put files into the original directory. Or let me rename the original directory. F2, right arrow key, _, Shift F6, right arrow key, _, and now we can do it. Extract, where are you? Auto detect. And it knew that even though the name of the file is signing keys _2, instead there's a directory named signing -keys, so it reused this name for this directory. Using 7-zip, the default option doesn't do any auto detect. That's why it extracts everything that's inside of the zip file, including the file that inside of the zip file there's a directory, which is something that you almost never want. You almost always want to get access to the files that you have compressed not to the directory that's created by the software that generates zip files. Control A, Control X, Control V. So Control A, Control X, Control C, Control V work correctly as in any graphical user interface application. And now the directory is empty because I went Control X, which means cut towards the clipboard, and then Control V to copy from the clipboard. I can delete the directory. I do not actually use F8, which uses the recycle bin. I delete the file outright, Shift delete, deletes permanently the file or directory without going to the recycle bin. Okay, let's do the same thing. So this should be underscore, where are you? F2 underscore 2, and we'll delete this one with Shift delete. By default, Shift delete does not work in Krusader. There's right-click menu and delete. So move to trash actually puts it into the recycle bin. Delete will delete it with bypassing the recycle bin. And it confirms this. So it shows the files and directories that are going to be deleted and says, do you want to delete? Whereas the other message is, do you want to move this item to the trash? But by default the delete action does not have any shortcut. Move to trash has the shortcut that you would expect, which is delete. And also F8 because we're in an orthodox file manager, and F8 is traditionally has always been delete the selected items in Norton Commander, Midnight Commander, everywhere. So that's why I, in Krusader, in order to have the same keyboard shortcut as in Total Commander, which is Shift Delete, actually the default shortcut for deleting not to the trash but completely the file is Control Delete. And I do not want to use Control Delete in Krusader and Shift Delete in Total Commander because I use both Linux and Windows daily. I have edited the keyboard shortcuts such that the delete without moving it to recycle bin has the shortcut Shift Delete, not Control Delete. So that's this one, alternative delete. You can search by delete. You only find delete, which has F8, and the alternative delete, which is the default is Control Delete. Okay, so I change this one to Shift Delete. Shift and delete. Okay. Shift delete. Okay, if you want to create a list of all of the files in the current directory, I use the search for that. So that's Alt F7. I don't put anything in here. Search. Files finds all of the files. Fit to list box. Control A. Mark. Copy names with path to clipboard. And then I paste this thing in Kate or in Notepad. Control V. If you don't like the sorting of the files, you can sort the results of the search. So this is a special tab which contains the results of a search. You can sort it, for instance, by extension. And then Control A, mark, copy names with path to clipboard. So it's CPP, M, CPP, QRC, RC, etc. And now, where are the CPP files? So all of the CPP files are together, all of the .h files are together. Okay, the same thing in Krusader. It's not Alt F7 for search, which is bad. Alt F7 has always been the search shortcut, except for Midnight Commander. In here, it's let's see how we find it. Edit. I'm not sure where it's hidden. It's Control S. So it's in the Krusader main menu, Tools, and then Search. If you search for nothing in the file name, will complain that you need to either provide part of the file name. Let's go with CPP. Or if you want to be more fancy, you could use glob syntax. So that means you can use question mark, which means any character one time, or asterisk, which means any character any number of times. You could use asterisk.cpp to search all of the files with extension cpp, or asterisk cpp without any dot. It will find the string cpp anywhere in the name of the file. Or you can just not use this glob. Okay, so we actually want to search all files, which means glob everything. Search, finds all of the files. We go feed to list box. In here it asks what should the name of the new tab be, which I'm not sure if it's an improvement over what Total Commander does. Total Commander doesn't have special names for the tabs with the search results. It's just one, whereas in here it remembers all of the previous searches that I always had. And it increments the number. So I have only used search and then feed to list box 3 times on this computer. So it would seem by these 3. Okay, we want to sort by extension. Let's see that the CPP files have been grouped together. Yes. Control A and then Control Alt C. Let's see what it does. Control V. It only selects the selection, so the one with the caret around, not all of the blue files. Let's see where is the button for copying all of the files. In here, copy the file paths of selected items. So under Krusader main menu, user actions, samples. Okay, so a similar result where the CPP files are grouped together and the .h files are grouped together. Exiting from a search result is just pressing ESC or backspace in Total Commander, whereas in Krusader you can't escape back to the directory where you started the search from because it goes to this virtual file system with the results of all of the file searches that I have converted into list boxes. So I need to close this tab. And hopefully it will go back to the tab where I started the search from. So again, being tabs, similar to web browsers, you can close any tab using the middle click on your mouse. So clicking on the scroll button, like this. Control T, open new tab, Control W, close the new tab. Control W, Control T, middle click with the mouse. Traditionally, orthodox file managers allow you to compress files to a zip file, extract files from a zip file, but also navigate inside the zip files. So just pressing enter shows in the full path that you're inside of a file because it shows the extension .zip. So this is a built-in thing from Windows, whereas this thing is a feature from Total Commander. Only Total Commander can navigate inside zip files the way Total Commander navigates inside zip files. We can see that because if you right-click on a file, the context menu is totally different. So this is a Total Commander context menu, whereas this is the context menu from iShell, from the Windows shell, graphical user interface shell. The same thing is available in Krusader. The path is similar, so signing keys to .zip and then the subdirectory signing keys in there. I'm not sure how the navigating inside zip files is implemented, probably using KIO. So the same feature should also be available. If it's using KIO, then probably the exact same feature is available or can be accessed from the default file manager from KDE Plasma, which is Dolphin. Okay, inside of an archive, you can look at the file by pressing F3. So view read-only mode. And I have never renamed files inside of an archive. Orthodox managers try to offer such a functionality. I have never just copied one file from there, which is allowed. How do we do that? Like this. You can drag and drop files from one pane to the other, which in this case unpacks and then copies. In Krusader, if you drag a file, in this case it will unpack, and then it asks if you want to copy or move. I want a copy. And then you can add additional files to the extracted directory, which again I don't do. What I do is I extract the directory. In the extracted directory, I put any files and directories that I want, and then I recreate a new from scratch zip file like this. The times when you needed to open an archive without uncompressing it and then extracting just one file from there was the time when hard disk space was extremely expensive and you would download, I don't know, an ISO file or a Windows XE installer, and instead of extracting it and making it use 5 gigabytes of your hard disk, you could just use WinRAR or WinZip or 7-zip or a orthodox file manager, go inside of that huge file and just extract the 2 MP3 files that you want. This was the way to not fill your hard disk. Let's go through the main menu. So help, we saw the list of actions, the shortcuts. There's a product manual and an about box. Product manual on F1 key in Total Commander, and help menu index for the product manual. About box. Okay, in settings, you configure what to be shown by default or not. And then keyboard shortcuts, we just changed Control Delete with Shift Delete for alternate delete. I don't use toolbars, so there's no need for me to configure the toolbars. And then when I install Krusader for the first time, I configure it in a certain way using this configure Krusader. In Windows, this is a main menu that traditionally has existed in KDE Qt widgets applications. So close current tab, Control W. I have maybe never used this menu. I don't use profiles. Okay. From the tools, search Control S, Alt F7 in Total Commander. Both have this functionality of replacing win merge and meld when comparing directories. They do kind of an okay job, but not a complete job. The feature is this one, synchronize folders. And in Total Commander, that's I know, what was it? Compare. This guy. In the Total Commander main menu, mark compare directories. It's showing in red the files that are newer. Says that we're comparing the same directory, okay. And that they look identical. This, we're not comparing the same directory, but the files have the exact same names and modified timestamps. Probably that's the way it compares. I'm not sure if it compares by content. So always used the file diff graphical user interface tool, meld on Linux and WinMerge on Windows. Don't use the built-in tool in the Orthodox file manager because you might have surprises like if it compares files just by name and mtime instead of comparing by content. So I don't use this feature. Okay, then the various ways of mounting remote drives, I know, SSH, FTP, WebDAV, SMB. The same thing is available in here in the Total Commander main menu net. There's FTP connect. Okay, what else? We can open a terminal. The shortcut is usually F4 to show the embedded terminal. This guy in KDE applications. And I can start a terminal from the current directory. I don't really need a main menu item for this one because if I want to open a terminal, I go Control down, which puts me into the embedded terminal, and here I start another terminal. Console, and this is a graphical user interface application, so I need to append the ampersand character. This is the way I start terminals in Krusader. In Total Commander, I go Control down arrow key and then Control down arrow key again. Shows me the menu, down arrow key and enter. This is the way I start a terminal GUI application in Windows. Okay. Krusader allows you to put any type of actions, custom actions defined by you, the user, in the main menu, and also assign them shortcuts using this user actions main menu, which has a graphical user interface manager application on top. Okay. Or we always show hidden files because that's enabled by default. In my case, I'm not showing previews. I want the rows with a file or a directory to be as small as possible, to not be tall, to be tiny, whatever. Sometimes the view in the Orthodox file manager will change immediately when you actually create a file on the hard disk using another application. Maybe you're compiling something, directories appear all of the time, files appear all of the time in the build directory. Maybe refreshing, so the current directory has changed on the hard disk. How does the Orthodox file manager do the refresh? Maybe it does it automatically, maybe not. Maybe you need to refresh to tell the Orthodox file manager, please look again at the hard disk and refresh the current view. So this can be done with Ctrl R reload. I'm not sure what the shortcut is in Total Commander. Why wouldn't a change that's made on the hard disk, such as a new file created in the current directory, immediately appear in the Orthodox file manager pane? Because maybe you're on a remote share and the Orthodox file manager is not notified automatically when a new file gets added. Maybe there's no automatic notification mechanism from the remote directory towards the Orthodox file manager, so the Orthodox file manager needs to do polling, like every 1 second it needs to ask the remote directory, hey, did something change inside you or not? And that polling might be costly because maybe your that remote connection costs by the minute. Maybe you're using a cloud offering which doesn't allow you to ask the content of the directory, to list the content of the directory without paying anything. Or maybe you're using a mobile device, a mobile phone, and you're using the data plan in there, and that might create additional costs because maybe you're not on an unlimited data plan. In the file menu, we get actions related to compression, to archives. We can pack, unpack, and test. Here is the multi-rename tool. And in the old times when you couldn't have large attachments to emails, for instance, you would compress a file, split it over 1.5 megabytes, the size of a floppy disk, and then attach each part of that split it from the file to an email and then send emails to, I don't know, NNTP, the mail news user news system. That's the functionality split file and combine files. There's verify checksums. I have never used any of these functionalities, not packing, not multi-rename tool, not splitting, not verifying. Mark the selection, so there's invert selection, this guy. In order to select all, I do Ctrl A, which is the default shortcut for selecting everything in a list view in graphical user interface applications, both on Linux and Windows. Okay. For searching, there's command search Alt F7 and tools search. These graphical user interface want to be similar. The functionalities that I use in Windows are saying which file I want to be searched for instance, txt. Then I say what text should be inside, should be the letter A. And I enable all of these checkboxes. So I want to check inside ASCII, which is 7-bit files, inside of ANSI, which has the 8-bit, inside Unicode UTF-16, which means Windows style UCS2 little endian with or without bomb, byte order mark, UTF-8 with or without the bomb. So I want to search in plain text files, does not matter their encoding. That's why I select these 4 checkboxes. Then there's the usual whole words and case insensitive, which exist in most search dialogues. For instance, in a web browser, when you go Ctrl F, you have the option of setting the text that you want to search from, whole words and case sensitive. The very advanced feature is regex. You should definitely learn regular expressions. They're very often useful, at least when you're a programmer, a developer. So let's do the same thing, signing keys, everything, search. And then back, I want just the text A as whole word case sensitive are here. asterisk.txt. The enter key searches. In Krusader, there is a separate tab for the results. In Total Commander, it's a pane at the bottom of the first tab, the General tab. And then you can search things like search only for directories, which is in Total Commander Advanced, Attributes, and then Directory. And then now it doesn't find anything because there's no directories. There are no directories in here. Doesn't make any sense to search for directories which have plain text content, because directories don't have plain text content. Okay, this is the most advanced feature there is in here. There exist plugins. For instance, you can search all of the files and directories that have ISO in the full path. That's where path contains this one. There's no directories in here, so let's uncheck the directories. And now it has found all of the plaintext files which have ISO in the full path. This is what I have selected in here. And if you have a very fancy search, for instance, you want to search for all the files which are not git ignored, you would add in here a ton of rules like don't show hidden files, whatever, I don't know. Don't show the .git directory, so that's tc path does not contain .git, whatever, not path, but file name. This thing. And after you've crafted your perfect search, you have the option of saving the current search. which you can then load. So it remembers all of the settings that you did in all of the fields. So the fact that you are searching for this globe, the fact that you did not select anything, and the plugins. I don't know how you search only for directories. So search by chown, by mtime, by size. There's search by size also in Total Commander. This thing, file size between. So the searches are pretty similar, and most importantly, they always work correctly. In Orthodox File Managers, search has always worked correctly for me. Doesn't matter if it's Midnight Commander, Norton Commander, Krusader, Total Commander, Double Commander, it always works correctly. It doesn't use any search index, any locate database, anything. It just plain searches for files and really works. I could never get search to work in other ways in KDE Plasma, such as in the Dolphin File Manager. I cannot get it to work in any version of Windows from Windows File Explorer, or there used to be an element in the Windows Start menu to search for files. Those things have never worked for me, whereas the Orthodox File Managers have always worked. So I'm absolutely forced to install an Orthodox File Manager in any operating system, because otherwise search doesn't work for me. Search almost, I could almost use the search from Visual Studio Code, because that's also correct, but that's not a file manager, so I cannot easily do file manager operations like compare multiple directory, multiple files, move files, etc. So in a pinch, if I don't have an Orthodox File Manager and I have Visual Studio Code, then I can do many of the search things that I do in an Orthodox File Manager with Visual Studio Code. So this is it. Orthodox File Managers, twin pane file managers are for me. I have used them since forever. I haven't graduated to something better yet. I know, to Vim, or what do people use after they graduate from Orthodox File Managers. I'm still at the phase where I need them and use them. Whenever I can install applications, and I don't see why not doing that. Even on server machines I'm going to install, which are headless, don't have a graphical user interface, I'm going to install Midnight Commander. If I'm going to work on a machine, most of my virtual machines which have graphical user interface have a Orthodox File Manager, because the moment when I feel the need of starting the native graphical user interface file manager, I remember that I don't use that. I don't use Dolphin, I don't use Windows File Manager. So let's get an Orthodox File Manager in here. In this video, I have compared the two Orthodox File Managers, KDE Krusader and Gisler's Total Commander. Do note that Norton Commander, Total Commander is not a open source project, is not a free software project. It's actually a commercial product, which is shareware in the sense that it allows you to use it for 30 days. So it's the best Windows File Manager for me, but you should buy a license. And the license is for your lifetime. There are people that bought the license 20 years ago and the license continues to work. And Total Commander works on any version of Windows, past and future. You have the by owning a Total Commander license, you will get updates for a very long time. And even Windows 95 is supported by Total Commander and Windows 3.11. Unfortunately, it doesn't work on Linux. And it works on Linux via Wine, but then it's not as native as possible. It doesn't use the native terminal, which is console. It's not in its habitat in Wine on Linux. Thank you.